Investors know him as the most powerful man you've never heard of, managing $10 trillion of globalized assets. His company BlackRock funds foreign governments and controls top shareholder positions in almost all of the 500 wealthiest companies in the US. He alone has more influential power than most countries. Owning $100 billion in both Lockheed Martin and Northrop Grumman has made him a rapidly growing political influence in 2022. Multi-billion-dollar investment bankers like JP Morgan CEO Jamie Dimon regard him as the Godfather of Wall Street, seeking him out for guidance on complex economic deals. Who is Larry Fink, and how did a man who came from the humble beginnings of working in his family's shoe store become the global economic titan that he is today? On this episode of Studying the Greats, we are learning the 4 major lessons that led to Harry Fink's rise to becoming a titan of American industry. If you enjoy content about financial freedom and learning about how the greats absolutely destroy their competition, go ahead and destroy that like button and subscribe to our channel for more content like this. Maybe you've seen him on TV with Bill Gates discussing sustainable energy. Or maybe you've heard about the man who helped innovate the mortgage-backed security, otherwise known as the source of the 2008 financial crisis. Larry Fink is the founder and CEO of BlackRock, the largest investment management company in the world. Love him or hate him, you don't know him. Probably since despite his unique story, there is relatively little public information available about him. He is a self-made billionaire worth studying and can teach us many invaluable lessons about what it takes to become one of the greats. Fink wasn't born into money, nor was he an outstanding academic. He was born into a Jewish American family in Los Angeles whose father owned a shoe store and mother taught English. He actually grew up in his older brother's shadow of success, working in his family's store while his brother was encouraged to pursue higher academic callings. He didn't study business in college, but instead got his undergrad in political science. It wasn't until completing his MBA that he decided to pursue money and went straight to Wall Street, taking his high school sweetheart Lori with him. Fink was an immediate power player. At the time, Wall Street was a fairly segregated workplace. Jewish and Italian Americans were treated unfairly, and Fink recalls an environment filled with ethnic slurs and differential treatment. He worked under these conditions for an investment firm called First Boston. Fink had a cult following with his loyal team of traders in the bonds department. In 2 years, he was running the entire department himself. Like most industrial titans, he was always ambitiously gazing upward and quickly outgrew his environment. Despite his rapid success, he promptly left First Boston and gathered some of Wall Street's most ruthless talent to go upstart his own asset management company. They named it Blackstone Financial Management, or BFM, funded and partially owned by the parent company of Blackstone. Unsurprisingly, it wasn't long before BFM outgrew its parent company, and as Fink put it, it was time for a divorce. Thus, BlackRock was born. Unknown to anyone at the time, this new company would later transform into the largest asset manager in the entire world. Therefore, the first lesson of Larry Fink comes from his beginnings in Wall Street. Never settle for less. Fink could have easily stayed at First Boston and rapidly worked his way to the top of the company, but he instead chose to risk being blacklisted by Wall Street for quitting his first job in an untimely fashion. He did this multiple times, never letting the fear of failure stop him from confronting his higher-ups and uprooting himself and his team. At the time, Fink didn't know he would go on to create the most powerful financial company in the world. He just knew that he could do better and trusted his instincts despite the possible risks. Applying Larry Fink's first lesson to our own lives, could you be doing better? Are you afraid to ask for a raise or leave the security of your 9-to-5 job to pursue your passion? According to theconferenceboard.org, 1/3 of workers who left their jobs received a 30% salary increase at the next one, and another third received 10 to 20% higher salaries. Larry Fink understood that he would regret not advocating for himself, and we should all try and do the same. It wasn't until he just began to get his own company rolling that the unthinkable happened. The Great Recession was the largest financial crisis since the 1930s, and the main culprit was none other than the mortgage-backed security. the very asset that Larry Fink helped engineer. Like many, he initially downplayed the threat of the subprime housing market when it started to emerge in early 2007, saying that the market was under a lot of stress, but that he didn't see it exploding into something meaningful and more destructive to the overall housing market. Like many other hopefuls, Fink was wrong. But this is where Larry Fink sets himself apart. Instead of getting crushed by the tidal wave of sell-offs, Fink leaned into the oncoming massacre and used his knowledge of the complicated mortgage-backed securities to help US economists deconstruct them and eliminate the bad assets from the good ones. Not only did he help solve the problem that he partially created, he was praised for it. From this point on, Larry Fink would always be known as the Godfather of Wall Street. Which brings us to lesson number 2. Chaos equals opportunity. While the rest of Wall Street was running for the hills and selling themselves for pennies on the dollar, Fink used the chaotic scramble as a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. He innovated his way through the storm of uncertainty, helping the country navigate through hell while buying up desperate companies along the way and building the most powerful financial launchpad the world had ever seen. So the question becomes, when the storm is at its worst, are you going to jump ship or grab a bucket and start tossing water overboard? Who knows? If you fight to save the ship, then by the time you're done, you might just be the new captain. This was the spark that BlackRock needed to shoot its way to the top, and it was only the beginning. Larry Fink built his empire atop the ruins of the 2008 recession. He followed Warren Buffett's key principle: be fearful while others are greedy, and greedy while others are fearful. Barclay Capital, an investment firm in the United Kingdom, had taken a massive loss after acquiring portions of the Lehman Brothers, who notoriously imploded during the 2008 crisis. By capitalizing on the misfortune of desperate companies like Barclay, Fink turbo-boosted BlackRock into unparalleled growth that made it the largest asset manager on the planet. To this day, they manage $10 trillion worth of assets. They fund foreign governments, are top shareholders for major defense companies, and are very rapidly taking more and more ownership of the top 500 companies in the US. Sam Zell, the infamous billionaire real estate developer, said he didn't know Larry Fink had been made God, and he wondered whether America is really ready for Vanguard and BlackRock to control the New York Stock Exchange, because that's what's happening. Despite the negative press, Fink is once again preparing to answer problems with innovation. Today, he is putting sustainable energy at the forefront of BlackRock's investment priorities. In many ways, he is spearheading Wall Street's green energy initiative in ways that no one else can seem to match. Which brings us to lesson number 3. Lesson number 3 is to starve the critics by answering necessity. People attack BlackRock for having investments in China or becoming too politically powerful, but if the ends justify the means to a cleaner future that solves climate change, who can say that what BlackRock is doing is morally wrong? Fink has crushed his critics by doing what no one else can for global climate change, funding it with an ungodly amount of money. Every endeavor is going to have metaphorical chinks in its armor. The question is, do you have a counterattack at the ready if and when someone tries to exploit it? And it really is more of a when than an if, because the more successful you become, the more opportunists will begin to see you as a potential to make a name for themselves. Larry Fink is a self-made titan of success. He thrived in a prejudicial work environment. He was blacklisted on Wall Street for walking out on his first job to start his own company. He was one of the few Wall Street entities that actually tried to help the US through the 2008 financial crisis that they were responsible for. To this day, there are many families who have not fully recovered. And yet none of the too-big-to-fail Wall Street companies responsible have been held financially accountable for their greed and disregard. Instead, our government bailed them out with taxpayers' hard-earned money that could have been put towards education or healthcare. We can learn a lot of lessons from Fink's journey, despite there not being a lot of information available about him. In a sector incentivized by greed and coveting valuable information, Larry was able to build a fiercely loyal following of teammates and future business partners from the moment he hit the trade desks of Wall Street. Despite constantly clashing with his partners, he always valued their loyalty over personal ego. He valued their differing opinions and personalities because he was wise enough to understand that he alone could not see every possible outcome. Which leads us to Larry's final lesson of being a Titan. The loyalty of critical teammates is more valuable than the kindness of incompetent coworkers. Which begs the question, do you hold your teammates accountable regardless of whether they will like you or not? Or would you rather forego your opinion to avoid discomfort and stay in the graces of your coworkers? If you enjoy studying the greats or maybe even want to join the FIRE movement yourself, check out our other videos about FIRE and our own journey towards financial freedom. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you want to see more content like this. Thanks for watching. Finzilla. Devour opportunities.